somehow she came up with 3,900 delegates by making a couple phone calls, which goes back to your statement that this was part of the plan already, because with a couple phone calls, she came up with the call-in voter delegates, which I don't even know if that's legal.
They can make up whatever rules they want as their party nomination.
Yeah.
But remember, Nancy Pelosi had people voting by voting remotely, effectively giving Nancy Pelosi half the Democrats' votes. So she voted however those representatives wanted in COVID. And until the Republicans took over, Democrats didn't actually go to Washington, D.C. Half the Democrats never came to D.C. to vote because Nancy Pelosi had their vote. Most people don't realize that, but that's actually what happened. So they aren't really big on having to all come and vote. The stunning part to me, I thought it'd be harder for them to do this because supposedly some of those people actually voted for Joe Biden. Some of those delegates were actually people who supported Joe Biden, who thought, at some level that Joe Biden was doing a job that needed to be defended. For them to automatically shift on a dime and say, we're going to throw Joe Biden over the bridge and pick up Kamala Harris, the fact that there was absolutely zero loyalty to Joe Biden amongst the delegates, the elite in the Democrat Party who are the deciders, that surprised me. It just makes you wonder how many of the Biden delegates were actually Obama delegates, just leftover delegates who were going to do what they were told to do. They all got on and said, we're told to leap, and they said, how high? I can't imagine if you were trying to replace Donald Trump and you're getting Republican delegates together, it being anything but a free-for-all, messy process because everybody has their own idea who should get it. We've been entrusted with a duty here. We're going to do the best we can on it. It's just a difference in thinking. It's actually why it's much harder to organize Republicans than it is Democrats, because individuals think for themselves and collectivists think in a Borg. But they're not Democrats because Democrats can't be Borgs. What they are, authoritarians with people who think they're going to benefit from the authoritarian rule. And what's ironic, of course, is every time that occurs, after they kill the czar in Russia, they then kill all the people who weren't authoritarian enough in consolidating their power. So the dummies who sit there and say this is okay, they're the ones that are going to find themselves on every bit as much of a hard side of the stick as people like you and me. Ultimately, so let's talk about something else. It is one of the most dangerous things. It's one of the scariest things I've observed in politics, because what we have is a candidate who nobody voted for, a candidate who they deliberately avoided having to do campaigning for a year before the nominating process. She never had to campaign for it. When she was campaigning for it in 2020, she utterly and completely failed. And who we know every time they sent out under the Biden administration to go out and try to promote a policy, she made the situation worse rather than better, if there are people on the left who think. All you need to do is to answer Kamala Harris is, if she's so great, then why didn't the Biden administration unleash her as their secret weapon for the last 4 years, as they knew that they were hiding the president in the basement because he couldn't perform? He only could work 10 to 4. Why wasn't she out there pushing the administration policies and being an effective spokesperson for Bidenomics, effective spokesperson for all the myriad of social changes they've tried to institute related to transgenderism and the like? Why wasn't she out there making that case? The answer is they were hiding her so they could try to create a clean slate to do the third part of the fundamental transformation that Barack Obama promised and threatened in October of 2008, right before he was elected president. You had Obama doing the first part, where they take over health care and where they normalize big government. In that, you had a healthcare crisis that takes down Donald Trump from the healthcare bureaucracy promoting the crisis. Then you have Joe Biden, who's the third Obama term. The other thing they took over under Obama is they took over the banking system and the capital system through Dodd-Frank. So under Biden, what are they doing? They created a censorship regime that made it so they could take over speech, because they controlled the mass media. You had this weird thing called the internet that allowed people to have speech, and they needed to rein that in. So that's what they've done under the Biden administration. They did the Inflation Reduction Act, which was nothing more than the Green New Deal. tried to eliminate the fossil fuels sector in this country, recognizing that Obama eliminated coal, even though we still use a little of it. You can't get money from the banking sector to pay for a new coal mine or to pay for a power plant that burns coal. So they've effectively driven coal out of the marketplace. They're looking to do the same thing with natural gas right now, which is the number one means of electricity generation in this country. So they're killing electricity generation on one side, and they are on the other side mandating electricity usage. Now, they're not stupid. They understand that we need to double electricity capacity over the next 10 years to meet the electricity demands if they're going to do all the electric cars and everything. So why would they say, in a place like California, we're going to eliminate dams, we're going to eliminate nuclear, we're going to eliminate the burning of fossil fuels, diminishing our capacity to generate electricity, and create a massive increased demand for electricity? And the answer is to make it so. That's a major thing she was associated with most. And yet they have attempted to erase her culpability for that. They've also figured out how to slow the number of people coming across the border in the last few months. So they're now pointing, saying, see, the border crisis is solved. They've gone from 180 to 250,000 across the border. They're now recording about 60,000 a month that are cross encounters on the border. So they're declaring that they've solved the problem after letting 10 million people enter the country. And we have to believe their numbers that they've solved the problem. She wasn't the border czar. And oh, by the way, it's not really a problem anymore. You can get an electric car, but if you can't charge it, it's a brick. It's to make it so you have energy through the control of electricity, which for modern society is the equivalent of water. It's the lifeblood of modern society. If you control the flow of electricity, you make electricity rare and not available. What you can't do is you can't build factories. You destroy modern industrial society, and you create a command and control. If you control electricity, you control any development, and that's where they're heading. And they don't make a secret of it. It's where they're heading. We happen to be an inconvenience in this process because the Obama administration, pre being elected, Barack Obama was clear that he was very concerned that America used, the whole line was about a quarter of the resources in the world while only having 3% of the population. These people believe in equity, not just in America, but around the world. If you believe in equity, which means equal outcomes, it means that the people who live in Papua New Guinea should have the same amount of resources per capita as people in America. What that means is you have to redistribute the wealth from America to around the world. And Harris talks about equity and not equality quite a bit, and it's something that's super scary. When you talk about equity and you talk about equal outcomes, what that means is if you are a wealthy American and you apply that on an international scale, it means that by design, you have to be less wealthy because they do not believe that you grow the pot. They believe that it is a finite pie. But Michelle Obama said it herself. For other people to get a piece of pie, somebody else is going to have to give up their piece of the pie. And that is directly from Michelle Obama explaining equity. They don't care if we're all living in mud huts as long as we're all equal. It's not a matter of raising people up. For them. It's a matter of lowering us to third world standards. And the way you do that is you destroy the electricity grid. The way you do that is you create people reliant on something that becomes unavailable. And then you have power of those people, but you also create an environment where they have to accept significantly less in the future. This is a battle for the soul of America. This is the election that's going to determine whether your child has an opportunity to live a better life than you did, or whether your child is going to have to accept whatever the government's going to hand out to survive in the meager, low freedom world prescribed by those who push equity, international and global control, and elimination of our Bill of Rights, elimination of our Constitution.
It's a scary position that we are in. We're in a situation where we have a person who is supposed to be the Democrat presidential candidate, and she won't do any interviews. She pushes past reporters. Maybe she'll take one or two inconsequential questions, but that's about it.